Danny Kelly from The Ringer. Follow him on Twitter and Blue Sky, Danny B. Kelly, senior staff writer at The Ringer, Ringer Fantasy Football Show, Ringer NFL Draft Show. How bad does it sound? Because in my ears, I sound terrible.
Your voice? It's a little scratchy, but nothing too bad. Nothing too bad.
A week of being sick, and then yesterday, an hour and a half of middle school basketball practice. That'll do it to you.
Yeah, just yelling. It's that time of year.
Cut to the hoop, you son of a bitch.
Block out.
Block out. Yeah, God, if someone doesn't block out, I'm gonna strangle him this year. I'm gonna go full Bobby Knight. Just kidding, parents.
Throw a chair on the court.
Yeah. Not doing any of that. All right. Well, surprised they fired him, Ryan Grubb?
I wouldn't say surprised. I would say maybe 51% surprised. I was very curious what they were going to do with this whole situation coming off of this season. I think obviously, before it happened and then after it happened, as we're sort of debriefing and more stuff is coming out, it seemed pretty clear that McDonald and Grubb didn't have a unified vision on what they want to do. Man, this sounds so familiar, doesn't it? With the run game stuff, not running enough. Being more balanced. It's going back to the Shoddy days, the Darrell Bevel days.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It was I just said it earlier. It was the last 5+ years of listening to Pete Carroll after every game. We got to run the ball more. Well, I don't know. Run the ball more then. You're the coach. And then Mike McDonald did the same thing this year.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, it's tough because on one hand, do they have the offensive line to really commit to the run? And that to me is the big question is are we just going to slam our heads into the wall all game, or are we going to kind of, go with what's working at any given time during a game and kind of feel it out and go that route? And I think ultimately there was probably a couple of games where Grubb didn't run the ball as much as the plan had been, or what McDonald wanted him to do. And so that was a big factor. But I think also it's just there's starting to be whispers, the personality wasn't exactly a fit. And maybe they just didn't see eye to eye on culture and all that stuff. So I think, there's things like that too, but I think ultimately it's the run game stuff just really kind of doomed Grubb. And honestly, it was so frustrating to watch, especially in the short yardage red zone, just not being able to run the ball at all. The sequencing that he was using, in those situations was kind of frustrating as well. So, not super surprised. I was a little bummed because I think there were some things I did like that he did, in the screen game and the passing game. But ultimately, yeah, the run thing is kind of what doomed him.
Yeah, because I'm kind of with you, Danny, that I was really excited for Ryan Grubb. We would talk a lot about this when they made the hire. I was more excited about Ryan Grubb coming in and the offense than I was about Mike McDonald with the defense.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see the parts on the defense. I wasn't in love with what they had done on the defensive line. Certainly wasn't in love with their linebacking core.
Right.
And so I'm thinking, well, I don't know. I think they're going to struggle, and I think it's going to be a real big learning curve. But I looked at the offense, and I did it with the caveat every time of if they can somehow just improve the line a little bit, then I think this offense with their playmakers,
an average line.
Yeah, Geno. Look at the guys they have as wide receivers. Very, a really good running back in Ken Walker, and I think a very capable backup there in Charbonnet. And I was very hopeful that they were going to put up some big time numbers. Started off good, but then it just plateaued and then it kind of crashed and never got any better.
It's kind of, and it's kind of funny. I had the same sort of impression in the off season, this is going to be fun. We're going to be high flying, push the ball down the field. It's going to be a great fit for Geno. I think it's going to be good for all the different weapons in the offense. And it started out strong and then really petered out. At the end of the season, I was the confidence level in the offense was kind of low. And inversely, the defense started out, obviously, I think the first 3 games they looked good, but then we started to see what the real defense looked like against good quarterbacks. And I was oh God, this defense is not good. People started talking about, oh, do we miss Pete Carroll yet? You know what I mean? Remember in the middle of the season,
and everybody had the same gif with the with the top hat on, chewing the gum, walking down the sideline.
But by the end of the year, I think the defense was clearly the strength of this team. It finished top 10 in DVOA in terms of the efficiency of the defensive squad. So really, really strong showing, really exciting momentum for the defensive side of the ball, and it just felt like the offense stagnated really hard. So yeah, I don't know. I'm very curious, like who they gonna hire. It just feels like the Seahawks have been cycling through offensive coordinators forever, and obviously, that's kind of the nature of the league. There are basically zero other than Ben Johnson in Detroit. Like there are like basically zero long tenured offensive coordinators, and I'm saying like play calling offensive coordinators.
And this is not. I don't want to. Because they said this before, so I don't want to make it seem like it's revisionist history. But one of the things why, and again, I know that the word came out, he didn't interview well and all that. But one of the things why, at least I was advocating for a Ben Johnson type, right? I mean, if they would have hired Ben Johnson, this certainly would have been a more run-first approach with him as the head coach. The reason advocated for that was you look at the league and who the head coaches are, right? Most of them are offensive-minded coaches, most of them.
Right.
And because of the simple truth is, if you have an offensive-minded coach, he most likely is going to call the plays or at least have a coordinator underneath him that has his vision and system, right?
Right.
So you don't have to replace those guys. The problem when you go with a defensive-minded coach like McDonald is he's got to go out and find an offensive coordinator that mirrors what he wants to do offensively. But the second that guy's got any success, a year, he's gone. Because why? Because that's what they're hiring. So they're just going to hire him away because that guy wants to be a head coach.
Yep.
So this is where I feel that we're just going to be in the same merry-go-round that we were with Pete Carroll.
Right.
You're just running through offensive coordinators every 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you're going to, and then you run into the issue too, like this is of course down the line and not necessarily something they have to worry about right now. But it's like if and when you get a good quarterback, a good young quarterback, you're going to be switching up offensive coordinators on him every 2 years if he does a good job. You know what I mean? Like if that coordinator and if that quarterback play well, then you're going to be cycling through coordinators. So I think that is like kind of the catch-22. Obviously, you want to have a good leader of men. You want to have a schematically on defense. Like I think that it's really exciting what they're doing, and there's a chance like their defense could be really good for years to come. And that's not a bad thing, obviously, but. Yeah, I don't know. Offense is such an important thing in the NFL. Quarterback is the most important position, and if you're switching up offensive coordinators on your quarterback every couple of years, that can be really tough on a guy unless you have like a truly elite player. So that was all part of the arithmetic or whatever when we were talking about like the coaching changes. Is like, man, I just want that offensive coordinator guy that's going to stick around and like bring his like McVay, like just be McVay for the next 10 years.
And again, it's not everything. It's not like to say that you can't have a defensive-minded coach and then all of a sudden they can have no success. I'm just looking at like this weekend's games. I mean, the Chargers taking on the Texans. You got an offensive mind versus a defensive mind. Ravens, I mean, I get Harbaugh as a special teams guy, but I always think Harbaugh's more of a defensive-minded coach going up against Mike Tomlin, who clearly is a defensive-minded coach. Bills, McDermott's defense. Peyton offense. Eagles, you got an two offensive coaches there in Sirianni and LaFleur, and then the Bucs go defensive minded against Dan Quinn, another defensive minded coach. And it's so funny you think about Dan Quinn. There was so much debate should they bring Dan Quinn back, and I was on the record. I don't want Dan Quinn. I don't want if we're just gonna hire Dan Quinn. Why'd we get rid of Pete Carroll? It's the same thing,
right? I said the same exact thing.
But he went out and hired an offensive mind in Kingsbury, who's been great. But now he's going to lose Kingsbury. Whether he loses him this year or next year, he's gone. He's got to, again, recycle and hire another offensive coordinator.
Yep. I don't know, man. I don't know what the answer is. I think there's no. I mean, this is like one of the problems. I think when you're in the NFL and any like whether you have an offensive or defensive minded head coach is like brain drain is a real thing that happens with every time you have a good team. I think this is why the Lions are so lucky. They've been able to kind of have continuity the last few years. Like that's a rare thing. And keeping Ben Johnson and kind of just like having their whole staff come back and. That continuity is like pretty rare among good teams because as soon as like one team starts doing good, the rest of the NFL is like, well, I want that. I want that system. I want that philosophy or whatever it is. And then they go hire a bunch of different guys. I mean, this is what we saw with like Belichick over the years. Like he lost all his coaches and kind of had to just keep sticking. He just didn't want to work with anyone new. And so he was just like, it's a bunch of the same guys every year. It's just like, I don't know. So that is a real thing that happens for every team. So I don't know if there's a way to avoid it, honestly.
You have a name in mind. You have a philosophy that you would like. I mean, because here would be my answer to my own question.
Yeah.
I would just say, I would have Mike McDonald look in the mirror and go, hey, Mike, what's the offense that gives you the most problems?
Right.
Whatever his answer is, then go find a guy from that offense.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Look, around the league, McVay,
Schottenheimer.
I mean, sure. I don't think that's going to happen. But I mean, if you look around the league, like some of the best offensive minds come from the McVay tree. I know that like the Waldron thing did not work out for the Seahawks. I understand that. But like Kevin O'Connell, LaFleur, I don't know if he necessarily counts as a McVay tree, but they're running, they come from the same like family tree. And you know, there's just like guys around the league. Liam Cohen is a big hot name that's coming up, and it might be a head coach here. So I don't know. I kind of still lean that route, like doing that type of offense. And honestly, like the McVay offense has always been super balanced. I think, you know, going back the years, they've always run a lot. They've always, you know, McVay, for being sort of thought of as like a young wonderkind, like new age guy, is really old school in a lot of ways. Like establish the run, like be really balanced, like have multiple ways to beat you. So I don't know. I just think like sometimes guys aren't good at play calling, and that might have been like what happened with Waldron, like sequencing, designing, like in game adapting and things of that nature. So I guess long way of saying it is I still would like kind of lean towards like one of these McVay guys, you know. Stenovich, I think from Green Bay, is a name that I've seen thrown around that I think is kind of interesting. But honestly, like I think the offensive coordinator, like kind of like the guys that are out there for hire right now, I don't know if like anybody really stands out. Who stands out for you?
Well, the late night talk show host Jon Stewart likes John Gruden.
Right. That's there we go.
In a second. Can you imagine John Gruden calling plays for the Seahawks, doing all those TikTok? Great
Spider,
point, John.
why banana?
But doing the TikTok videos and doing what's the boom? Huh. He would do that like every Friday.
18 out of 18? Couldn't do that pregame warm-ups.
Every Friday, he'd put that out on TikTok. God, it'd be great, man.
Oh, man.
He's got, I remember Rob Staten a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, had mentioned, because Jake Peets is on his staff. Mm-hmm. And Peets comes from he's a quarterback's coach, I think, or offensive assistant.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, he had mentioned him a few weeks. He comes from, again, the McVay, the Rams thing, tree. So maybe the candidate's the in-house guy. Maybe it's him. I don't know. Doug Peterson, just because Doug Peterson's is from here. Hey, did you know he grew up in Bellingham? Sure, anyone knows that.
I think he lives in Ferndale.
Ferndale. It wasn't Bellingham. It was Ferndale. Yeah, Ferndale. He's a local.
I don't know if anybody. If we're gonna get real ultra local with this, like Bellingham is not Ferndale, for the record.
I know. I that's right. Ferndale is a little bit more blue collar, right?
Yeah, it's a little like I would say Bellinghamster. People call them like it's like the county, the county kids,
county people.
Yeah,
that means like missing
county
teeth
folk
and stuff.
Well, I think that's probably a little bit like the impression. That's the stereotype.
Okay.
Of course, that's not what actually is happening out there.
Hey, Ferndale, I love you and support you. Puck Sports.
Ferndale is a hot real estate market right now, guys.
Ferndale, really?
Yeah, Bellingham is getting too expensive. All the during the pandemic, everyone tried to move up to Bellingham. Now the houses are too expensive, so people are moving to Ferndale.
Got a hobo problem up there? Hobo. I said hobo. I didn't say the other one. Oh, Danny. Yeah, you got a homeless problem up there?
Did I cut out there for a second?
You did. You cut out for a second.
I don't know what something is going on with my camera.
I had a joke and it was stupid. No, I'll move on. It was a dumb joke. All right. So then, how about Mike McDonald's just glowing remarks about Geno yesterday on his coach's show? Is Geno going to come back? I
was complaining to the Seahawks group chat about this yesterday. Basically, like, dude, just say yes. Just say yes and move on with your life. We don't need to make this a story. Obviously, I think I don't know what's going to happen with that, but like lying as a head coach, like this is probably not good for me to say as a media person because like it creates storylines for us. But like, just go ahead and lie. Just say yes, he's coming back, and then if he doesn't, you know what? Then you can say, well, things changed. Like I don't understand why I didn't just like very strongly say, yeah, he's our starter next year.
I mean,
like what's wrong with that?
The pause and everything. Yeah, I got no reason to say no. So
yeah.
Can you imagine Geno watching that going,
dude?
Oh, well, I'm set. Can't wait. So I guess my question would be, I mean, you're going to hire an offensive coordinator. I mean, I just don't think it's a foregone conclusion. He's back. They have a decision to make before March 16th. I think it's very much on the table that he doesn't come back. But I don't know what other options.
That's what I was going to say. Is like, okay, so then what? That would be my question. Are we going to go with Sam Howell here? I think we saw how that worked, and I don't think they're going to be in position to draft a quarterback that's going to be able to start right away. I suppose you could reach on a guy like Jalen Milroe, maybe, but maybe by the time the draft rolls around, that guy's a little bit higher on people's boards. I don't know, but I don't know. That seems like. Obviously like he wasn't perfect this year, but like why move on from him right now when you don't have another option?
What do you think? Well, okay, what if another option presents itself? What do you think Minnesota ultimately does? Do they franchise him? They franchise Sam Darnold? Yeah. It's amazing how Sam Darnold was great all year long. He had one bad game, and then everyone's like, "Well, see, this is the Sam Darnold we're all used to."
This is what I'm talking about. It's like this is like cold feet night before the wedding kind of deal. Everything's going great, and then you're like, well, I don't know. He started to see ghosts a little bit in that game. He was pretty bad. I think, if you would have asked me this like a week ago, I would have been like, they have to at this point franchise him, go another year, see how it goes. If he's like really good again, if they win 14 games or whatever, 12 games plus, then you have to sign him to an extension, and then you can trade JJ McCarthy, do whatever. But I don't think you can go to JJ McCarthy after the year that they've had and be like, all right, well, hopefully this works. Hopefully we're good. Like, I don't know. Like, I just can't see an NFL team doing that.
Do you like the Colin Cowherd trade proposal?
Well, who did he
thinks the Seahawks should go out and get him?
McCarthy? Sure. I'm down for that. Honestly, I would be down for that. I think that would be great. I mean, it depends on what you have to give up. You have to give him a first round pick though, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't want McCarthy because then now I've got my wife that will be fawning all over him, and I don't need that. Okay, I don't want that.
Do you think Seahawk fans want a guy who's out there meditating on the field pregame, doing all the Russell Wilson stuff? I
said this. Do that?
Yeah, I said this during the pre-draft process. Actually, like this guy kind of reminds me of Russell Wilson.
Does he do music videos? Does he have a singer like girlfriend? Does he do anything like that?
I do not think so.
Okay.
No, I'm just pitching him shit. Really, I think it is a part of his pregame process to kind of like meditate or whatever.
Does he have a catchphrase? Does he, go Wolverines or go Vikes?
I'd have to look at his Twitter account. He has been tweeting a little bit during this, like during Sam Darnold's great success. Kind of like tweeting through it a little bit. Like he'll tweet like, "I love this team." Like,
oh, great heart. Did you see that Sam Darnold being carried?
He's like, "I'm so happy for you.
Love you." You know what would have been full Russell Wilson is that McCarthy should have just been dressed up in full uniform all year long, even though he couldn't play.
Yeah, with the eye black and everything.
Yeah, shoulder pads, just everything. But just had the whole package.
I don't know. Like if the Seahawks wanted to go get him, grab a guy from the KOC, the Kevin O'Connell coaching tree, and I don't know, do that. Like I would not be against that route. What's his name? McDonald has experience with him, right? They overlapped in Michigan, I believe.
He should have, yeah.
Yeah. So I might know what he's like as a person, but but regardless, like even if they trade a first for McCarthy, I still would probably hang on to Geno for another year or whatever, and kind of like have that transition season. I don't know. I still think it's kind of weird how people want to get rid of Geno so quickly. Like, is he that bad? I think he's pretty good, honestly.
No, I don't think he's that bad. But I also don't think you can commit $50 million for him.
Yeah,
that's I don't think he's worth it. I don't think he's worth that amount of money.
Yeah, it's always the age-old question, like exactly how much these guys are worth. I feel like watching Sam Howell run that offense for like whatever it is he ran the offense. But I was like, pay him whatever he wants. I don't care. Like, I can't watch this. I can't watch this for a whole season.
It just reminds me too of Schneider last year was like asked about the quarterback room and hey, you think you're going to draft anybody? You're going to do anything there? He's like, what are you talking about? We got Sam Howell.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, you got him. But yeah, are you going to get anybody else? Because he's not good. There's a reason he was available.
I know it is. The quarterback situation is always so funny. It's because it just like the Seahawks in particular going through like the John Schneider era. It's like the Charlie Whitehurst thing. Yeah. The Whitehurst thing reminds me a lot of the Howell thing, where it's like, yeah, I like their traits. And I could like see a world in which we strike gold. I think the Drew Lock thing essentially too. Like I know when they traded for Drew Lock, they're like, maybe this guy can be a thing, and you have to take those swings. But I still don't really think there's anything that showed us that in like Lock, obviously Whitehurst. I don't think anything. I don't have any high hopes for Howell. I think it's kind of funny that he was like a 5th round pick, and then they traded a 3rd rounder for him after a year of throwing a whole bunch of interceptions. Mm-hmm. I don't know. You have to take shots at the quarterback position, and this is where like sometimes maybe you do land a guy like Darnold, sometimes you do land a guy like Mayfield, but I think those guys, these are top 3 picks in the NFL draft. Like those guys were much more highly thought of in the league, and so I don't know. I don't know. I think they should keep Geno. I think they should pay Geno ultimately.
Okay. All right, you're going to be probably turning the page. I mean, we've got the playoff games, starting this week, but turning the page to the draft. 18th pick.
Yeah.
Right. You can start doing all the mock drafts. Who's going to give me a couple names right now, Danny? And we'll discuss this as we lead up to the draft and all that. But give me a couple names that could be there at 18.
Well, I did a mock draft the other day, and I gave them Tyler Booker, offensive guard from Alabama, just a big old ass kicker. Throw him in there at guard. I think people are going to be like, oh, a guard in the first round? Are you crazy? But I'm like, dude, have you seen their offensive line? I don't care if they take 7 straight. I don't know if they have 7 picks this year. I don't care if they take 7 straight offensive linemen. Find some combination of guys that will block, and this offense is going to be really good. Like that is my theory. That's my thesis. I'm sticking to it.
I'm with you.
I think, but this class is interesting because I think outside of the top, and maybe we do this every year, but like outside of the top, like 6 or 7 guys, it's a pretty flat in terms of like talent, all the way through into like the end of the second round. I think there could be like a lot of surprise first rounders, the guys that maybe people weren't thinking are going to be first rounders. I think there's some very interesting edge rushers in this class. I don't know if that's like a high need for the Seahawks, but there's some guys like in this class that I definitely like. There's some good defensive tackles if they want to bolster their defense. My dream would be a guy like Jalen Walker out of Georgia somehow falling to the Seahawks. I don't know if that will happen. He's kind of getting a lot of buzz right now, but he is a off-ball linebacker that also plays on the edge, has some real interesting pass rush chops, super athletic, super explosive, really big, tough physical guy. I feel like he would just fit like a glove in the Seahawks system, and so he would be like my dream pick with their first pick. Like he could play linebacker. He could also play edge rusher in certain situations. Right now, that's kind of like the guy I've got circled. But yeah, I'd say like right now, like interior offensive line, edge rusher. There's a couple of really interesting tight ends in this class. Again, not necessarily a big need. And then defensive tackle. That's like the kind of like the position groups I'm sort of circling for the Seahawks area right there. If Malachi Starks from Georgia falls to 18, could happen. He's another guy that I really like. So I'm
sounds like you like everybody, Danny. You like everybody in the draft class.
I think again, it's like after the blue chip players, there's just a bunch of like good players, and so you have to be realistic. Like you're probably not going to land a blue chip player at 18.
Last thing before you go.
Yeah.
All right, we got to do it before I talk to John.
Oh, the Barge?
We got to go Barge. I don't know if you have somebody in mind. There he goes. There's the Barge. Look at the Barge. Look how beautiful the Barge is. I know it's a container ship. It's the Barge sound. All right. We put somebody on the Barge every week. You're going to like mine that I'm going to put on the Barge. The creators of Landman.
Yeah.
You want to know why I'm putting them on the Barge?
Why is that?
Because Jerry Jones should be on the show every week.
Right?
That was the best acting.
Did you get a little tear going on?
Yes.
Little cry.
It was some of the best acting I've ever seen.
Soft sobbing.
The guy's an owner of a football team, and he's in there give it away with why he's in the hospital, but it was unbelievable. Like when they said, when Demi Moore's character's like, oh, he's in there with Jerry. You go, I'm like, who the hell's Jerry? And then all of a sudden there's Jerry Jones.
Just literally as himself.
And he's an actor now.
I did not know he had it in him.
Give him the Emmy. Give him the Golden Globe right now.
Man, he was good. He was
great.
I was like, that's tugging at the old heartstrings. Honestly, it kind of made me look at him a little different. I'm like, you bought the Cowboys so you could work with your kids?
You know what I was thinking as I watched it, and then I'm thinking about like what's happened in the last few days. F you, Mike McCarthy. I'm on Team Jones.
Yeah.
McCarthy can go F himself.
Let's put McCarthy on the barge.
Okay, McCarthy. Yeah, McCarthy goes on the barge. We can always take you off, Mike. Don't worry about it. All right.
Yeah.
Danny, we'll talk to you next week, man.
All right, sounds great.
Hopefully my voice is back. There he is, Danny Kelly from the Ringer, senior staff writer at the Ringer Fantasy Football, Ringer NFL Draft Show. Follow him on X and Blue Sky at Danny B. Kelly. He's with us every single week. That segment brought to you by Georgetown Brewery. Go check out their Georgetown Tavern Beer, easy drinking domestic style lager made with Pacific Northwest barley and Yakima hops, 4.2%, brewed by my friends there at Georgetown Brewery. All right.
Drink Georgetown Tavern Beer, your new locally brewed domestic style lager. 4.2% alcohol, cheap, good, local.